presentation, we have the discussions. And you may also write questions or comments in the chat. Is there anyone that doesn't know how Teams works by now? No, I think probably you can find all the buttons, and the chat is on the top of this view. So there are still some people coming in here. So please, Greger.
Okay, thank you, Sara. I will continue with some information. The first I would like to say is that this webinar is recorded for the publication on the EO4GEO website. So I just want you to know that it is recorded, and if you don't want to, if you can act the way accordingly.
Yeah, turn off your camera if you like.
Yes, of course.
Simple.
Yes. This is something I just wanted to start with, the learning outcomes that we use when we construct these webinars. So what we are hopefully going to transfer to you, and to what you will get out of this webinar will be a basic understanding of remotely sensed data and vegetation indices, knowledge of different EO products, and when I say EO, it's Earth observation. It has to do with satellites normally, and services. Understand how to acquire data on urban greenery using remote sensing methods. Understand how data, the acquired data can be used to improve urban greenery management, especially in the context of climate change adaptation. Understand how EU data in combination with other remote sensing data can contribute to the assessment of ecosystem services. So that's something of the learning outcomes. And also I would to say a few words about the project. This EO4GEO project is started in 2018. It's ongoing. It will end next year. So what we are doing here is building tools and framework and training material and actions to help people to choose the right learning paths, for example, in the geospatial Earth observation sector. In this case, we provide training actions, training material and tools within this. And here's the project vision and the mission, and it's to foster the growth of a European Earth observation geographic information sector and ensuring a workforce with the right skills in the right place at the right time. And the mission is then to ensure strategic cooperation among stakeholders and skills development in this sector. And how to do that then? We work with a strategy to identifying the supply of the education in the geographic information and Earth observation sector, and both at academic and vocational levels, and also try to identify the demand for these skills within the sector also, and the occupational profiles that is needed, and also assessing the shortages and gaps and mismatches between supply and demand, and analyzing trends, challenges and opportunities in this sector. So for this strategy, we have a number of instruments, and we work with a so-called body of knowledge, which is publicly available from our website. We also have a portfolio of training modules that is directly usable from the website. So you can go into the EO4GEO website and have a look at the modules. A series of learning actions. This is one. And also a long-term action plan to ensure that this can be provided for a long time, these services. So I will say a couple of words of this body of knowledge. Maybe and this is completely the focus of this body of knowledge is of course Earth observation and geographical information. And the interrelated concepts. I can give you a very brief demo of this. This is the visualization of this body of knowledge tool, and from here we can just type a word, for example, vegetation. And we will get a lot of information about, for example, vegetation indices, spectral signatures of vegetation, and we can get some details here and links to different articles and literature on this. So this is a way of learning things about Earth observation and geographical information systems. So I will go back to presentation. Maybe this takes a little bit of time to... So these are a few of the other tools that are available within the project. The curriculum design tool, this book I already showed you. Occupational profile tool, job offer tool, body of knowledge matching tool to match different resources, the book annotation tool. So EO4GEO has a series of different work packages, of course. I've mentioned the training action and the training modules, but also a mobility program to promote internships and on-the-job training, and the long-term action plan. And you are most welcome to follow us and get engaged in this project. If you're an expert, you're welcome to look into the body of knowledge and maybe revise, feed the body of knowledge, and subscribe to the newsletters. Thanks. I think next thing is that we will do a short poll. And if you can use this link, I will try to do let's see here. It's always interesting to So the question in this poll is your work or study related to urban or environmental planning? So far we have 4 answers. And we have 11 answers, and most people seem to have a relation to this in their work or in their studies. At least to some extent.
Okay, I think that was all.
Yeah, okay. We'll continue with the next. And now the million-dollar question is, are you using GIS or remote sensing data in your work or in your studies? Almost everyone. Good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we will go on with the next one. We just do it like this. This is very simple. We just wanted to. And here you can write your address, or I should of course join this one also.
Yeah. Seems like most people, the most popular place here is Stockholm.
Okay. Okay.
We have some people from abroad, from Belgium and Austria, Bulgaria,
Yeah.
Italy.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And nice to. Okay, you want to take over, Sara?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So we are not in the same place. Next picture. I want to talk about the concepts of green infrastructure and ecosystem services. And first we will define a few terms, these terms and ecosystem. And then as according to Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, the definition of green infrastructure is that it's an ecologically functional network of habitats and structures, natural areas, etc., that are important. They are managed in a way that biological diversity is promoted, and thus also ecosystem services. Ecosystems are defined as, according to Convention on Biological Diversity, as a dynamic complex of plant, animal, and microorganism communities and their non-living environment that interacts into the functional unit, that it interacts and works together. And the ecosystem services are the results of the green infrastructure and ecosystems, providing plants and lives that in some way contribute to the human well-being, the direct and indirect contribution of ecosystems to human well-being. So that's the definitions. And the next one is a bit more about ecosystem services. They usually are divided into 4 groups of supporting, which can be it's the ground for the other ecosystem services to exist as well. How the earth is formatted, the biodiversity, primary production of everything, and habitats where animals can live and plants can also live and spread. And we have the provisioning with food and food production, wood, and clean water. And then we have the regulating, which we will focus a bit on in this webinar, like the climate regulation, very important in the cities with, for example, the green areas to regulate the flooding of water. It's even if the amount of water and coming with the climate change, it might not be the most important reason to why we get flooding in cities. No, it's the impervious surfaces and that the green areas are decreased in the cities, and also the evaporation and all the water has just continue flooding on the impervious surfaces. Of course, pollination, it's a lot of talk about that. And we have the cultural ecosystem services, which are might not be measurable in the same manner as the others, but they are very important to us humans, being inspirational and recreational and aesthetical. Here visualized by the Lars Vilks monument in the south of Sweden. Looking into urban ecosystem services a little bit more, we see that in the city also the habitat networks and biodiversity are important for the spreading and for keeping and giving all these services. And I mentioned the climate adaptation to keep green areas to prevent flooding at heavy rains, for example, and stormwater retention. The local climate is important, where trees, for example, they can reduce pollutants and micro particles to a great amount and provide cleaner air. Health and recreation, of course, that people have somewhere to go, to move, to to exercise and to meet and just to see the beauty of the nature. And we have cultural heritage, etc. And also becoming more and more popular, the urban cultivation, which is a part of the urban green infrastructure as well. So coming to the green infrastructure again, the concept for habitat networks, as I mentioned before, is that now we're talking about trees because it's quite an easy way of describing and talk about the habitat networks. Trees are connected in some way. Often they are connected, and the forest area can be large enough to hold a species for reproduction and to live in. And we have to see, is it connected or isolated? Is it connected to other forest patches via spreading links that are short enough for the species in question to spread through? It can be via stepping stones. It's like small forest or tree groups of trees, or just one alley or something. But this is what we talk about when we talk about the tree habitat networks, how they are connected in a city. And so the distance to other patches can be one barrier that is too long, and there can also be other barriers like very large roads or railroads or building constructions that prevents certain species from moving from one patch to another. So in this image you can see the red areas that are dark red. They are the forest patches that are big enough to hold a specific species, in this case a forest bird, just a normal forest bird. And the blue patches are big enough to hold as a living environment for this bird, but it's not connected. The red ones are connected to other ones, and thus this species can spread to other areas and reproduce. And you can also analyze this network according to just one specific kind of tree, for example, oaks in the right image. So the green infrastructure is thus very important as being an ecologically functional network of habitats. And it's a prerequisite for ecosystem services to exist at all. For the ecosystems to work, connections between different biotopes or habitats are required. And isolated species are depleted, which means the ecosystems in which they are included, they will function less well. So it's important to be aware of this, how everything is connected, and keep that in mind during the planning process. If not, the result will be a deterioration of the ecosystem services that we want to have from the greenery. So the next shows it's a report from the Global Risk Report of 2021. You can see that the green issues are high on the global agenda. Terrorism, war, trading, and cybersecurity are not at the top 5 list at all. So it's a lot of green risks, so to say. And then we have the Dasgupta report, which is a 600 pages report, which I haven't read in detail, but the summary of it is that we can see that the natural capital have decreased since the 1990 with 40%. While the economical produced capital have increased with 95%. And the human capital, like education and health, have increased with 14%. The natural capital have decreased with 40%. And this is what you can learn from this is they want us now to really address the imbalance and take the green ecosystem services and green infrastructure into account and really count at it in economical terms. We need to change this way of counting. As you may know, we are becoming more and more city inhabitants in the world. So this is a global curve showing that we already passed like 2010, then number of people living in cities passed the rural people. And in Sweden, it's even more. We have already reached the future estimation of 90% or 87.5% to be precise. So that's a little bit odd because Sweden, you can see it as a very green country, and so, but still most people live in the city. And that demands quite a lot from us because it's exhausting. It's a lot of noise pollution, high temperatures, and it demands that we can cope with that to really feel well and be healthy and productive. So this is what we call ecosystem services, the services that the city's greenery produce. All these products, they provide something for us and our well-being. It should also be an economic production function to be accounted for. So there you can see the definition again. I will say some words about some of these ecosystem services. Like everybody knows about carbon control, that trees, for example, they bind carbon dioxide quite a lot. Gregor will tell you some numbers on that, how you can count on it. And they also store carbon in their wood and stem. Local climate control, I will come into that. Stormwater control, pollution reduction, habitat networks, etc., etc. First, carbon control. You can, I think everybody has heard about this. So when the tree dies, the carbon goes back to the atmosphere, but they still having a vital forest management is often argued to be a real carbon sink, that let it grow all the time, having it the forest grow as much as possible. After a while, when it's old enough, it doesn't grow that much a year, for example. But in the city, this is a little bit different because you have also to take into account how must it cost to bring up a big tree, a 100-year-old oak, for example. And I think Greg might have some numbers on that too. Energy conservation. It's like you can save money on the shade that the trees provide in the summertime for cooling savings or heat savings for being a protection against wind. Local climate control. This is one of our favorite areas. Actually, we have a whole webinar about heat and temperature that you can listen to if you like. That it was given in February, and it's on the EO4GEO webpage. So the trees, they can reduce the temperature by evapotranspiration and deflection of solar radiation. etc. And then they provide shade as well to the local area. So if we look at trees and temperatures in urban areas, we can look at, here are two different types of area compared. Exploited area, like impervious surfaces, buildings, roads, etc. in the grayish color, and you have tree areas in green. And they have different buffers. That's why it's analyzed in different buffers. That's why there are two of each of them. And you can see that when the number of trees decrease, the temperature rise very clearly in this diagram. So the highest temperatures, almost everything is impervious surfaces and built up area, while in the cooler area, and this is the same, it's compared with satellite data registered in the same day. As you can see here, there is a surface temperature map from satellite. It's the maximum temperatures during the years of 2013 to 18, and the warm areas, the hottest, they are in red, and the blue areas are the coolest ones. And here we can have an overview like this over large areas from satellite data, not very detailed, but you get a good apprehension of how different areas provide heat or coolness. So what we can see is that trees are important for reducing heat. And here are some numbers on the how accurate these measurements can be. Actually, these measurements were made from Landsat 8, but we have other satellites in the Copernicus program as well. And here is a curve showing that the difference between the measured satellite temperature, surface temperature, compared to the measured in situ temperature in one measurement station in Sweden. It differs some degrees, as you can see in the left diagram. And the standard deviation, it was written in Swedish here, but standard deviation varies depending on what kind of area this measurement station is situated in. Okay, stormwater control. So the impervious, as I mentioned, the impervious surfaces are the main contributor to excess stormwater runoff. And we need to take this into account. The old pipeline planning was not, it was not planned for having this much impervious surfaces for this much building constructions in the first place. They were potentially built 20 or 30 years ago, and nowadays with the development of the city, it becomes a great problem. And so pollution reduction, it's like small microparticles, they stick to the leaves of the trees, and they can reduce in the local area, as well as in the larger area, of course. And this is something we can count for and compute how much it stick. So to conclude this part, I would say that it's quite very, very important to take these green issues into account in the planning process at an early stage, because as the project's planning goes on and the further we come, the more the knowledge increases about everything, the levels of freedom decreases, because the longer the project planning was done for a building project, for example, the less we tend to spare the trees, spare the green areas, and take them into account. So that's a dilemma. So now it's Greger's turn again. Please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. So I will try to take over the presentation. And I will continue with the part that is more about the technical aspects and what EU data and GIS data you can use to just to make these assessment of the ecosystem services and the green infrastructure. And this part will be a little bit technical, and but not too technical. It's just a little bit of technical background to how to access data and how to analyze the data and what we are looking at and so on when we try to analyze the green structure and the ecosystem services, and how you can use the Earth observation data. So these images, 3 images in this slide I'm showing, they are all from the same date and the same registration, and it's from one of the European satellites, the Sentinel-2 satellite. So why do they look so different? And they all are registered at the same time, and that's because this satellite has a number of this satellite has, of course, the visual bands that is showing that you can see by the eye, but the satellite also has several other bands that is in the near infrared spectrum, that is very much used when it comes to plants and leaves and so on, and the green infrastructure. But it also has bands that are used to discriminate snow and ice and clouds and so on. So in total, I think we have 13 bands or something in this Sentinel-2 sensor, and only a few of them are visible. So when we are presenting these images, it can be different band combinations, and you can also derive a lot of other information like vegetation indices from this. So the images we are looking at are all combinations of different bands and from this satellite. So what to say more about this? Yeah. So for the moment, I'm only talking about this Sentinel-2 satellite. So how about the vegetation and the spectral reflectance? This is also a wavelength spectrum, and the reflectance from different kind of materials, and the green line is the green vegetation. And as we can see, it has a peak in the spectra around the green, of course, in the visible spectra, but also a large peaks, I would say, here in the near infrared spectra. So when the leaves are green, it gives a very good response in this spectra. And then there is a decline towards the short wavelength, the short wave infrared spectra, and a couple of peaks here also, small peaks. Compared to just bare soil, which has a quite flat spectra, you can see that it doesn't at all give this near infrared peak. It has not at all that. The spectrum from bare soil is very different, so it's very easy to distinguish green vegetation from bare soil, of course, in satellite images. And also the yellow line is aging or an old brown vegetation that has quite a different spectra. It's much stronger in this shortwave infrared, and not so much of a peak here in the shortwave. So this is the basis of how you discriminate different and differentiate different materials on the ground from satellite images. So one of the very common methods of doing this is to use indices of different kinds, a vegetation index, and there is a very simple principle. For example, this NDVI, normalized differential vegetation index, is one of, I would say, hundreds or thousands of different indices that you can derive from these satellite images. But it's very common and it's quite old, and it's built upon the difference between the red and the near infrared. So when you have a healthy tree or healthy leaves, you get quite not so much back from the red, but you get a very strong reflectance from the near infrared. And here, when the tree is aging or the season is the vegetation season is going to its end, it's quite different. Or if the tree just gets dry or something happens with the climate. So this vegetation index can go from healthy 0.72 to unhealthy or declining like 0.14. So this is a very much used index among many indices. So here is some just to follow up on that. A dead leaf would have the reflectance is quite even between these different. The near infrared is not so strong. A stressed leaf can have some green reflectance, some red, and some near infrared, when the healthy leaf has a very strong reflectance in the near infrared spectra. Yes, we'll continue. Of course, there is a very great advantage if you want to monitor something in the monitor vegetation. There is a great advantage if you can use time series multi-temporal images. So this one shows actually a vineyard, and the vegetation season, and you can very clearly see how the vegetation is developing on this plot here on the so it's different registrations from the beginning of April to the end of September. So you can see that the peak is around in the late August and beginning of September. The peak vegetation, highest vegetation index. Yeah, a bit quicker. Yeah, I think so. Here is about the same another index, the same plot, the same registration, but you can build another index, and now it's this index shows more of the moisture. So so this is a similar procedure with the index, but it's showing something else. And if you're interested in these vegetation indices and other Earth observation topics, I would advise you to go to this training module we have here that is all about vegetation indices. So, and you can also check out this training material catalog that we have on the website. I will talk a little bit about data services and access, how to access data and how to use the services. Copernicus land monitoring service provides land cover, change, land use, vegetation state, and so on, and it can support different applications, as of course spatial and urban planning, forest management, and water management, and it has been operational since 2012. And you can read more and also access the actual layers. So this I already mentioned. These are all the of course applications that you can use this for. Agriculture, of course, climate change, mitigation. And here is just a slide showing where this is actual a land cover map from the Copernicus land use, and these are both viewable and downloadable from this website. Another viewer I would recommend is the Terrascope viewer, but also has quite a few of the Sentinel products, Sentinel-2, Sentinel-1, and also Sentinel-3, I think. It's provided by Terrascope, and here you can freely go into this, and you can actually also look at time series, of what we talked about a little earlier, and different vegetation indices, and you can also view infrared and color images of the Sentinel, and you can flip between different dates and so on. So this is a very good viewer. So when it comes to our case, a little bit later, we are using, this is also a product that is derived from Sentinel data and map data. So this is a Swedish land cover product called Nationella marktäckedata. It's a 10-meter resolution satellite product, and it gives information about different land covers and different forest types, I would say. And it has been produced based on Sentinel data and map data, and it will be updated in the future also. So this is a very, very much used product in Sweden. I will also mention this high resolution land cover maps that is quite similar to the Swedish land cover data I showed you in the last slide, but this one is of high resolution, and it's also made from ortho photos and map data. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah. But as you can see, the resolution is quite high, and it's very useful when making different kinds of analysis on the ecosystem services and the green infrastructure. So if you compare these three, here's to the left is orthophoto and the 1 meter resolution, high resolution land cover, and you have the 10 meter resolution land cover. You can see that the basic structure is the same, but you get very much more detail in this 1 meter, of course. Yeah, and what we use a lot, of course, is also airborne LIDAR data, and you can derive from this. You can derive a lot of products like terrain models and height models and so on. To the right is the point cloud that is coming right out of the data. From these point clouds, one of the products you can derive from this is treeheight. This is an example from Swedish Skogsstyrelsen. You can derive a treeheight map of this, and you can actually in quite detail look at the tree heights, and you can also, of course, derive ground cover maps and so on from this product. So this is also a very, very important product when it comes to deriving information on the green infrastructure, of course. Here's another example of taking these LIDAR data, LIDAR, maybe called, taking it a little further. In this map, every tree is singled out and identified with the segmentation procedure, and they are then mapped with height and crown diameter. So you can get the information of the single trees on a map, and you can of course provide more information to these trees, and eventually also derive information about the ecosystem services and they provide. Yeah, we continue to this case that is In this case, I want to show how what we are talking about, the data and the methods, how can this be used in an actual urban development case? And in this case, it's a municipality north of Stockholm metropolitan area. It's called Sollentuna, Södra Häggvik. A large area is going to be transformed from currently it's an external trade area. It's most of it is it's built up, and the green spaces are very sparse. So this is going to be transferred to a residential area with schools and parks and so on. The proportion of the green space is very small. There are also some major barriers, like the big European EO4GEO road and also the railway. So therefore, there are a lot of challenges when it comes to strengthening the green connections and also the green infrastructure as a whole. So the goals here are to provide a good built environment with a rich plant and wildlife. So therefore, we will just make a short overview of what has been done so far here, and how the green infrastructure and the urban ecosystem services has been assessed. So what is to be planned? It's an it's like I said, it's a business area, trade and business area. Currently 5,000 new homes are planned, and when it's fully developed, more than 10,000 inhabitants are expected to live in this area. There are some planning challenges. As I said, we have forests, or at least some forest cores in the western part, but we also have these red lines, or the large motorway connecting north of Sweden with Stockholm, or the road that goes north, and also the railway, and a large the traffic system here is quite extensive. So there are planning challenges when it comes to reinforcing and making the green infrastructure more functional. But there are also forested areas and green areas quite close. So what we want to do here is, of course, to strengthen the ecological networks and increase connectivity. And there are also in this very the whole area is almost impermeable. This it's asphalt and concrete, all of it. So improving stormwater management by enhancing the green infrastructure would also be a challenge, and something we would like to do. And when it comes to ecosystem services, of course, pollutants from the traffic on the large roads and motorways would be good to reduce them. Water retention, reduction of carbon dioxide, climate control, temperature are also issues, of course, for this area. So I will start with the habitat networks. So the issue is, how will the plan affect the ecological networks? So in this case, the data sources for this are a land cover map. So I've been talking before about the national land cover map in Sweden. The Lidar-derived tree map is also a data source, and also, of course, detailed plans of the development area. And the analysis of this will result in a connectivity map. How are the green patches and the green cores connected? And also we're mapping out isolated and not connected green infrastructure, and also to get some measures to quantify the difference between the different scenarios and the plan. So here is an overview of the land cover map that I've been talking about. All these in red and brown here. Red is the area we are talking about. We have also this 3-point map that is Lidar-derived 3 points that we use also. So from this, we can make some scenarios and test what happens. What is the current status, and what happens if we reinforce the green infrastructure and do something about to plant more trees and so on. The red, if we look at the situation today, we can see the red cores that are forests or at least forest patches, and we see the lines connecting these patches. In this area, the number of trees and the green is very sparse, so we have fewer connections in this area that is currently very built up. We can also see that there are the large roads. They act as barriers between these patches and in the future plan, some parks has been built and also quite a lot of trees has then been planted. So as we can see here in the future plan, at least over these east-western corridor here, we can see that the number of links between the patches has increased. So and we can also get different measures to tell us something about how good this is. And but we can also see that the blue ones here they are not really connected to each other. So we have some, as also in the current situation, we have blue areas that are not currently connected to another patch. So this was one kind of unrestricted network. When we restrict the network to be connectivity only, we restrict the connectivity to 200 meters, it becomes more, the links gets more sparse. So, but we can anyway see that the new plan is anyway providing a little bit better. It actually connects this green area in the middle, which is not connected now for the moment. And I would also, I should forget to say that this is the the network, habitat network here is a generalized forest bird, so it's simulating how a forest bird would move in this area. So we will go on to stormwater, and the issues here, like I said, stormwater, we want to manage that within the new development area. Also management of cloud bursts and prolonged rain events. And the data sources in this case are land cover maps, geological maps, Lidar-derived terrain models, detailed plans, of course. And the analysis will that has been done is depression mapping, infiltration mapping, hydraulic modeling, and modeling of flow paths in the different scenarios. And this is a couple of the input data, and also this land cover map is derived from satellites, and it's a natural input to this, and also the geological map tells us something about the infiltration and runoff. So what has been done here is hydraulic modeling has been done, and it has modeled a precipitation event with a return time of 100 years. So in this case, it's the situation, the present situation, and where in these areas will flooding occur. So this is the present, and this is the future plan then when there has been green gardens and so on planned here. But we can see that still flooding will probably occur when in a 100-year event, even if a lot of green infrastructure in this case has been added. On the other hand, with the green infrastructure in the right place, you can manage excess stormwater in a good way anyway, but it doesn't change the whole situation, but it makes some difference. So we will go on to some analysis of ecosystem services from trees and land cover data. So the data sources in this case is also Lidar-derived tree maps, inventory on tree species, detailed plans, new buildings, planting of new trees. And the analysis will in this case be a scenario analysis, and we will look at water retention, carbon storage, and sequestration, and reduction of pollution in the same area. And this is an image showing the application stadsträd, which we have developed together with a commercial company called Kaluna, another commercial company. And within this is the current today's situation. Quite few trees here in this area. As you can see, it's very much concrete buildings and asphalt. But here we can make statistics of the trees, and also we have a module for calculation of ecosystem services that is connected to the iTree model. So from this we can make an estimation of the ecosystem services provided by the trees in this current situation, and we can compare it when we have developed the area and we have currently there are around 500 trees in the area, and the new plan would mean that approximately 200 trees would been taken away, and but also 850 trees would be planted in this area. So we can then make a rough estimation of the ecosystem services that the trees are providing today, and also what is could the new plan, what that could mean, and in terms of ecosystem services. So this is just an example how we can use the i3 Echo algorithms in our application to have a look at, for example, water retention, that today is 227 cubic meters per year, and it will, if the plan if this plan is going to be fulfilled, it will end up in doubling of that to 521 cubic meters, and the carbon storage, in this case in kilos, might be better to have it in tons, but currently 96,000 kilos of carbon will increase to 220,000, and so on. And the pollution removal will increase also. We also have a figure of cost of replacement. It's calculated within the i3 ecosystem. That is also, so it's currently the replacement cost would be in this case in thousands of crowns. It's about 13,055 kilo crowns, and that would mean that it is 13 million crowns with a new development. Okay, and as for the last example, is just the temperature mapping, and this, of course, because it's a measurement, we can see that this development area is clearly in a temperature hotspot. We can see the cool structures, the forest here in the western part, and also the lake here, some providing some cool, but this is definitely a temperature hotspot, and the green infrastructure has to be reinforced here when developing this area to a residential area. Yes, I would like to thank you for listening, and we are doing a short poll, and then we will go to the discussion and question and answer section. So please grab your mobiles or what you have, and go into this. Poll. So now we really hope that you think that this.
Can you show the result?
I'm not showing it. Okay, so I'm not. Okay, now then, can you see the result?
No.
No. Okay. Sorry about that. Var är ditt delade fönster? Slut. I will try to show. Okay. How about now?
No.
Okay.
But we can just to summarize, this score was 4.5. That was very satisfactory, I would say. 53% for 47% 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Now,
So
Howard was thinking a little bit, but
so,
yeah, I think you're very nice to us.
yes.
Okay, so we'll
Extremely.
let's
Go to the conclusion.
Yeah, we
and questions and discussion. So please, to conclude this, we could conclude it that urban greenery need to be involved in early planning stages to be taken into account. A well-planned and developed green infrastructure in urban areas is necessary to achieve ecosystem services. I hope many of you are experts in this area, I know that, but so you already know it. Ecosystem services also is the value that nature creates for humans and need to be accounted for on economical terms. To be real, to be real importance in when it comes to planning, I think. And EO data, Earth observation data, can be used for estimation and mapping of green infrastructure and ecosystem services as well. If you have any further questions after this, then please contact us directly. You can find us at this web page. It's a very long one, Geografiska informationsbyrån.se, same as our mail addresses, which are greger.lindeberg@geografiskainformationsbyrån.se and sara.wiman@geografiskainformationsbyrån.se. So we're very happy that you joined, and we are very interested in hearing your opinions or thoughts about this, about how to use the data and tools provided by Earth observation and GIS. So please, the floor is yours.
You can either just say something in the microphone or raise your hand or write something in the chat. But maybe this was okay. We have one. No. Okay.
I can ask the question. Duncan McConaughey here from WSP. Hi, Gregor. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Thanks very much for your presentation. Really, really interesting. I can put on my camera over here as well. You can see who I am. Hi there. Really good presentation. Really interesting. I've worked with this for many years as well, but not directly the last couple of years. But I think even I learned a little bit, some new things as well from your presentation. So thanks very much for that. I just wanted to ask you generally about what your feelings are about the uptake and use of especially satellite information in Europe in general and in Sweden. My general feeling is that we're not that good at maximizing the use of all this information that's available to us. What are your experiences from what you've seen from this project and generally out in Europe?
I think this project is part of the trying to achieve that, to make Earth observation data more used and more available for planners, for everyone. And it has been difficult. And recently, it's not that long ago, we got this Sentinel data available to get the time series and data, often free data earlier. So it has been a long period of research, and we you get data a few times a year at a very high cost, and now you can get data a few times a week at no cost at all. And what we see, for example, with the cadastren, the nationella marktäckdata that is used by for green plants and for estimation of the tree volumes and all this elevation data coming from the LIDAR, that together forms a basis for creating tools like stadsträd, for example, where you actually can get from this data to some numbers. And what we have seen, it's like it has not been in Sweden, I must say, then it has not been very easy to get users, because the demand is, they are not used to it for the first, and then the regulations around this, how you have to provide information and take ecosystem services into account in your planning process. It's not already there. It's just there will be in a few years, in 2025, there will be a governmental regulation concerning ecosystem services. They have to be taken into account. And I think we will see a lot the coming years, how to solve it if you don't use this kind of data. I cannot see exactly how people go out in the field and measure, because it is a very high cost. So I think this will be a middle way for many municipalities to go, to get something at first, to get the knowledge, and then you can go into detail. So, but it's difficult.
I think also this to have these products that are refined and what you that are not directly the satellite images with all the bands. It's very useful that you derive all kinds of products from it that is more usable than the original raw data. So that's important too.
I agree with you. I think that's actually a very important component, that there are these products that are available which are more easily accessible for the average person. That's definitely a way forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone
else?
Kemostrom here from Statistics Sweden.
I
can pick up on what Duncan just asked, because I was thinking about your opinion when it comes to, let's say we would like to industrialize the use of these data. Do you think that there is enough, let's say, infrastructure and tools out there already to do it if you want to work on the raw data? You mentioned, for example, the national land cover data. It's excellent for people that would like to work on a more digested form of data. But my opinion is that there is still a bit too much of a threshold for people to work on the raw data itself. It takes quite a lot of work to get the imagery where you want them to be, and let's say you want to work on time series data. It's, I mean, in theory, it's straightforward, but in practice, it takes a lot of resources just to access these huge volumes of data. And so what's your take on that? Do you think there are still a lot of things that needs to be put in place before this is for a broader audience?
Absolutely. I think it's a point on, heads on. I think that, for example, if we take the municipalities as an example, they have their systems, they have their mapping systems, and they are what we maybe digitally exhausted by now. you don't want to learn another tool beside. You want everything integrated. And it's very difficult to come up, even if you have a really smart and perfect algorithm, you need to integrate. And for example, I mentioned this because we discussed it in the stadsträd about the tool we have developed for this measuring trees and ecosystem services, habitat networks. The next step is to really integrate it into any system they would need it integrated into. Otherwise, I think, and it's the same with, of course, with the satellite-derived products, any of those products. I think it's a very big step. So,
but things are also happening. Maybe things are starting to happen, and you have the possibility. It will at least be possible to build things on these very large data banks and where you have access to all the data, and it's starting to build up, of course, but maybe it's more for experts. But you can, of course, build and as you said, industrialize some of the services from that, and maybe build automatic services that can provide something very special to a user that is updated maybe every time a new registration is done or something.
Yeah.
So
and
I
it's
think
happening.
it's happening, but maybe it's more like more specialized services that will be popping up here, and that, I'm just guessing, more than that it has the data is being used by everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any more comments or questions? We can also get together afterwards if you like, or have anything else to discuss. But we would like to thank you all for joining us in this beautiful summer day.
Yeah.
So hope to see you again live sometime in the future. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay.
See you in the future.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.